persona, something like this. And this is, there's a few formats for it. HubSpot has a nice one which feels similar to this. The book has one which is a little more detailed than this even. And but the basics are just to get the demographics, what this person cares about, their frustrations, and the most important is their priorities, right? What are their pain points that you can solve for?
And actually, I cut off, this was a longer document, so I cut off what are their priorities, and then how do we speak to each one of these?
But you've got that following. So from here, what you led into was extremely powerful, right? So you have a persona, and then which defines who's your customer. From there, you get into what you can do for your customer. And here's where you start to chart the competitive positioning and standing, right? And so for Frank, we've learned what his priorities are very clearly here, right? And so what Don is saying is that they figured out a way to be the best for Frank's 4 out of 5 priorities and be good enough for the last one, right? Which means that you now will own this space because everyone that is like Frank that cares about these 4 things is going to come to you and no one else on this chart because you figured out a way to differentiate yourself, right? And so this is exactly where you'll go in the next week is now mapping your competition on the pain points that your persona has and the priorities you're solving and figure out a solution so that you're the best in 2 or 3 pain points.
And I'll comment, this was actually real data. This is an exercise. I just sort of removed the names, but these were real competitors that we were looking at in this space.
So to me, this is just an exceedingly powerful exercise and part of what disciplined entrepreneurship makes you go through, right? This is wonderful as well. Yeah, now so Don got through a lot of material very quickly. And I'm going to cover a portion of your cost of customer acquisition, which is directly linked to how you sell to your customer, right? And so one of the things that Don got across was that you get to test different ways to sell your customer. And really what you're trying to achieve is a few things, right? You're trying to sell quickly. You're trying to sell to your target customer in the best way that has a connection with them. But most importantly also, you're trying to drive down that cost of customer acquisition, right? And we now live in a world where people can be more creative about that, right? With using digital marketing tools, you don't have to be the biggest player to win always. You just have to be the smartest and do things differently. And the more experiments you can run, the stuff that Jan spoke about last week, right, that allows you to test what are the best ways to sell, can really help drive down that cost of customer acquisition and let you play with these things. But this work up front, to understand the basics of what will be required to sell someone, this is the most valuable thing because then you get to play around on each step of the process and test what works best, and then you start to get those 10x results which you were talking about, right?
And my point, if you figure that out, so if let's say it costs $200 to talk to a possible customer,
right,
but you're, 50% of them turn into real customers.
Right.
So if you have this incredibly high number, so it means that if you do it 10 times better than anyone else, you can spend 10 times the amount of money to drive new customers, all other things being equal. And so what that means in a lot of marketing channels, the person that spends the most shows up first and gets the majority of the volume. And so if you figure that out, it will let you dominate in advertising and just nobody else will show, almost. Not exactly, but be number one.
Oh, and so I thought this was really interesting, right? So this to me, where you drove home the point about the fact that